right. Are y'all ready? Because I'm so excited about this conversation. So, we've been talking about all things Black entrepreneurship during this Shop Black-A-Thon marathon. But right now, we are going to talk about how to level up, how to grow at every stage of entrepreneurship. And I am here with Mikki Brown from US Bank. And what I love about her is that she keeps it real. So let's get into before we like dive into the conversation, just give the people a little bit of background of the work that you do
Okay.
and your and in general.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here to be able to share my knowledge that I've acquired over the last 40 plus years in banking. So that is my background, working with small businesses. When we say small businesses, not necessarily just your mom and pop businesses. We're talking about all businesses, probably less than $50 million in revenue. Right, looking to see how we can help them. So from 0 to 50 million, there's an opportunity there to help you. From strategy, for being connection, for helping connect you to the people that you need to be connected to. And we cover all facets. That is my goal. And my passion is to help people ideate and to strategize around how to be a viable business, right? How to maintain my business even in the uncertainties when things are changing that you have no control of. As a business owner, you got to have that mindset. You always got to be looking around the corner to see what do I need to do, what do I need to implement, or what do I need to employ in my business in order to be able to be successful.
Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Is that you?
I think that was mine.
Oh, can you
Block it. It's blocked. I don't know how he came through. That's weird.
I was about to say, well, put it on. Wait, is that a phone or your laptop?
No, that's my laptop.
Oh,
He teams me and I'm unavailable. Hold on, let me do this. Yeah,
okay.
I'm on do
No worries at all. Um, so do you remember the last part of what you said? If you could just
yeah.
kind of
So
rewind.
yeah, even connecting you to a business. So when you think about small business, my goal is to help you ideate, to strategize, and think about what do I need to do to employ in my business, change in my business, or adapt to make sure I maintain a viable business. Right. That's my goal. So that's kind of what I do. Sit down with customers, help them identify that, help them identify services, things that are going to help them be efficient in their business. Looking at the business holistically. That is my job. Let's look at it holistically. Let's see where you're at today, where you're trying to get tomorrow, and what has to happen in order to make that happen.
I love that. So, because you've worked with so many business owners at different stages, the first thing that I would like to know from you is when people are coming to you when they're first starting out, what are some of the biggest struggles that you see them face?
Of course, number one, they have a great vision but no plan. Right, so it's good. I always tell people, you can have this great dream, right, but we don't want to turn into a nightmare. And when you don't have a plan, dreams turn into nightmares. So having a plan of action. Second thing they need is everybody needs funding, right? But if you're proactive, there's a way to have funding before the business start, but you have to be intentional about it. It goes back to the plan. Those are the two things I see most often. And then when I think about a business that's maybe in the growth phase, where they've been in business for 3 years and they're turning that corner, right? They're growing.
Hmm.
So I'm growing fast, but I might not have the money to actually keep up the growth or to get the next contract. Thinking about ways to strategize to be able to do that, learning how to hedge different things, learning how to leverage your relationships in order to make that happen for you. And then you get to your mature businesses. Their concerns when you get to mature business. So I've been in business over 10 years. I'm mature, I've stabilized. Now my concern is not so much of how I take the business to the next level. Now I start thinking about why I went into business, which was probably to make wealth and be my own boss and to create a legacy. So their concerns maybe shift a little bit. But the great thing about what I do is that no matter what life cycle you're in, I can work with you to help you achieve those goals and connect you to the people that you want to be connected to in order to achieve it. And then the final life cycle stage is what we call either transition or I hate to say declining, but maybe stagnated. And that's a business, probably been in business over 20 years. And now the person is ready to retire. And our goal is to say, don't close the doors. Let's see who wants to do what you do. And there's an opportunity for you to sell that business. So across the board, just thinking strategically. And you probably know this too. When you worked in something for so long, you know how to master it. You know the business in and out, but maybe you don't know how to transition or navigate as you're moving from one cycle to another, because there's 4 stages in the life cycle of business. And so as you're moving from one another, sometimes you need that person to help you. And we avail ourselves to be able to help in that capacity.
So I love that you touched on, of course, how a lot of business owners have the vision but no plan, or they're trying to figure out how to move forward with funding. And the biggest part that you mentioned was just the execution part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to now, you're the banker.
Yes, ma'am.
When people come in
Mm-hmm.
looking to figure out what their next step is that they should take, how do you get them started?
Well,
Especially when it comes to like, and we having a real conversation, right?
yes, ma'am. Let's have a real conversation.
So most times you have a black entrepreneur. They have this great idea. Maybe they've been selling pies. Maybe they're making jewelry. They're like, I'm going to turn this into a business. But then, like you said, they don't have the plan beforehand, or they don't even have any business acumen.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start with that? Because if we're going to be real about small business owners, we gotta go back before the starting line, and that's because that's where a lot of people are.
Yes. So if you come to me, I love your example, and you've been selling cakes or pies, or sometimes people say, I have a hustle, and I've been hustling for 3 to 4 years. So now I'm going to turn it into a legitimate business. Let's turn it into a legitimate business. So the first thing I'm going to say is we need to connect you with an incubator. We need to connect you with someone that's going to actually help you create the foundation of that. Now I will begin it, but here again, my plate is full. So I'll help you start. I'll create that connection, but there's 5 things you have to have before you jump into business. Number one, you've got to have a business plan. Number two, you need to identify what type of business you're going to be. Are you going to be a sole prop? Are you going to be an LLC? Are you going to be an S corp, C corp? You have to identify that because there's some legal pieces that's attached to that. Number three, you got to have an EIN number, right? Either you're going to use your social security number or EIN number. You got to apply for that. And we're the state of Tennessee. So number four is you need to make sure that you get a business license, because now you're going to be a legitimate business. And it sounds funny, but you'll
Talk
be
about
amazed
it.
how many people don't get a business license. And then number five, there are just some connections that you just have to have if you own a business. You got to have an accountant, right? You got to have someone to help you with your books, because that can get you in trouble. You got to have some legal team. If you're creating an LLC, a lot of people don't know that if you go to C corp requires that you have a board, right? So you got to be careful of that, right? You need to understand what's attached to the business type that you choose. Then I tell everybody, even I don't care what you're doing, even if you're publicly speaking, you got to have insurance. That is a big miss for people. And then the right type of insurance. Quit going get just general liability, because that might not be what you need to cover your business. Depending on the type of business, that you need a particular type of insurance. General liability might not be enough. So really, really taking a step back. That's why that plan is so important. But those are the things I tell them they have to have. And then we go from there to identify where they're at in just that formation piece. Because it's easy to sell a pie, right? Collect the money, but then you don't record it. And then now you say you want funding, you need money, but you have nothing to show what you made, because you just, you identified it as a hustle and nothing was recorded, nothing was captured. Now you want money, and you can't give money to a business that can't show a cash flow. So just
Woo.
taking a step back and having them just the foundation of it. Let's build the foundation right. That has to be built right.
I am so glad that you brought up cash flow. Say it with me for anybody who's watching. Cash flow. Okay. So let's talk about it because when you went through your list of, the to me the foundation, proper licensing, the EIN, having a business plan, like all of those things, okay, that's the start. But then one thing that I don't think a lot of people touch on is your business model, right? So a
Mm-hmm.
business model, if you're watching, you don't understand, that is just simply the easiest way to say it is the way that your business makes money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you talk about cash flow, because I really think this is important. And it leads to my next question, which was from your perspective, why do you think that most Black-owned businesses don't make it past year three?
Couple of things. So we'll go back to, remember we talked about creating the business right? So that means I have to capture my revenues, right? Because I don't care what type of business you are, at some point you're going to need some type of financing. You're going to need some type of collaboration to be able to take you to the next level. So I need to make sure I capture my revenues right. The second part is people say, well, what about my business credit? And I just want to share that personal credit is a reflection of business credit. Your business credit, I'm sorry, is a reflection of personal credit. So when I talk about business credit, you don't get business credit until your credit is in order, because remember, you are the borrower, you're borrowing the money. So a lot of times people come in and they want to borrow money and they say, well, my credit might be challenged, or I'm having challenges on my credit, but let's just use the business credit. Well, when you look at a financial institute, we're looking at both, because you're the guarantor. A business can't write its own checks to pay its own bills, an individual do. And since it's your business, you're guaranteeing it. We're looking at your credit. We're looking at how much exposure you have, right? To determine that. So that's number two. And number three is maybe in the business, as I was doing the business, because there's always been a myth out there for the first couple of years, oh, I don't have to show any profits, right? And so there's a concern there, because if you show no profits and you're a brand new business, how are you going to borrow money? Right. So if I'm looking at your business and your business is what we're using to validate a loan, and you show you make nothing, how are you going to make your monthly payments? So you have to balance that. I think when it comes to borrow money from a bank, you have to plan that. It has to be planned. I just can't write everything off and say I have no money, but I need to borrow your money. That becomes very hard to say, okay, sure, I'm going to loan you the money. That doesn't work that way. So cash flow is king. And those are the three things I think that challenges us in being able to get the funding we need for our business, or even to maintain a viable business. Because at some point you're going to need some help or some support as you grow your business.
Right. And there's a conversation, right? On social media, we have the gurus, but there's a conversation around, do you bootstrap or do you use someone else's money? Now, for me, when I first started as a business owner about 11 years ago, I was able to use my personal credit
Mm-hmm.
and my income from my corporate job to invest in my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't take out a business loan. I took out a personal loan because I was just uneducated about, how I could have used my credit then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then I continued to bootstrap and started thinking about funding late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love your thoughts about um, what do you think about bootstrapping, and bootstrapping, if you're listening, it just means using your own money and reinvesting what the business makes back into the business
Mm-hmm.
versus using a loan, um, a revolving line of credit or something like that. What are your thoughts?
So I think you do both. And Tanisha, kudos to you for identifying, I want to start this business, but I know it's not generating enough income. So I'm going to stay on my job to have revenue coming in until I bill it to that place, right? Because sometimes people don't do that. So kudos for you. So I think you do both. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I
What
was
were you going
about
to
to
ask me?
say. I don't want to take too much credit for that because I'm not sure if that was intentional. Um, I just knew that I had the extra means and I was like, I want to invest in my business while I still have the extra means. So
That
I
was
guess I can
intentional.
take some credit.
That was intentional. So I'm glad you brought that word up because I think you have to be intentional in bootstrapping and in using someone else's money. So let's start with the bootstrapping piece. Bootstrapping intentional will help you maintain your business. What do I mean by that? So if I'm going to go into business and because you got to remember this, it's your dream. The first person that should invest into the dream should be you. And you got to know what you need to invest in the dream. That's why that plan is so important. I cannot emphasize creating a business plan because it'll help me identify how much money do I really need to run this business, right? And then it might intentionally tell you, you know what, I got to keep working for another year to get those funds up and stay on my job 4 months after I get it going, just to make sure I can be a stable business. Because it's nothing like going to business and on day one you're struggling, right? So you got to be intentional. So the other part, so bootstrapping, I think everyone that goes in business should do bootstrapping. You should invest in your own dream, right? Now you could do that. There's several different ways. You mentioned a home equity, a line of credit. Well, one of the ways you could do it is if you know you have equity in your home, we provide lines of credits, right? So think about it's an investment into your business. So for you, when you sit down with your accountant, your CPA, you say, "Hey, I invested 60,000." There's a way to record that in the business where the business can pay you back, right? Because you're investing in your business. So I think you should do that. The other part, when you get the business up and going, I love the fact that U.S. Bank, our business credit cards are wonderful. And the reason why I like the credit cards, because this is using somebody else's money. Think about it. You get to use somebody else's money for 30 days. And if you're intentional about it, right, you could use somebody else's money, leave your money in the bank earning interest, use the credit card, earn the triple reward points, which can be converted to cash, right? So I'm using your money for 30 days. I'm getting cash for using your money. I'm paying it off in 30 days, but I left my money in the bank and earn interest. It's a win-win.
Can we pause right there?
Yes.
Because I was this year's old, like this year. Now you say today years old, but I did not realize how you could use because a lot of people when they think about funding, they're like, I need to get a business loan or a revolving line of credit. If you have credit cards, you can use your credit cards, like you said, to leverage. And I wanted to pause because I wanted to give an example. If you run ads for your business, I'm hoping that you do because you're marketing. You can run the ads, use the credit card to pay for the ads, generate the revenue, and then pay the balance. And
Mm-hmm.
for someone like me, I wish that I would have known how to better use credit to keep my business growing. So I really wanted to pause on that point because I need y'all to understand that the way that we've been doing things is not the right way.
Well, it's a big miss. If I let me give you an example. I'll share a story with you. There was an organization, a nonprofit organization, they had been around a long time, and they did not want credit cards in their organization at all. They did not want them. And no matter how hard I tried to get them to see the value in it, they would not do it. Well, one day I just happened to be meeting with the board at the right time. They said, okay, we'll take one credit card. So they got the one credit card. I encouraged them to purchase everything they possibly could on that credit card. Even if the limit was only like 15,000, they could purchase it on the credit card, pay it off the next day. Purchase it on the credit card, pay it. So I encourage them to purchase it, get the credit card up to whatever it is, and then pay it off and use it again. Well, they did that for like 7 months. So they reevaluate their budget every 7 months to see where they're at. When they came back and looked at the budget, their CFO, who had been making purchases, had used the points. There were so many points out there. She started using the points to make purchases with. So when they came back, it was like, why do you have so much money left over in your budget when it comes to supplies? She said, because I'm getting points, and I can use points to make purchases. So for people on the phone who says, I don't want to use a credit card, why would you not? When you think about points, that's money back. That's efficiency. That's learning to be efficient in your business, how I manage the cash in my business. And I want to talk back something you said earlier. You said you use your personal credit card. I encourage people, if you're going to use your personal credit card and you don't get a business credit card right off the bat, make sure you designate that credit card just for a business. Put nothing else on there, just your business. And then when you get a chance, switch that over there to a business credit card. But credit cards are not your enemy if you have the discipline to pay it off in a timely manner.
I agree. I agree. So let's talk about um but well, before we get to this, I mentioned cash flow earlier in the conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to skip over why it's important and apply a real world example. So from
Okay.
your perspective, can you explain from a banker's lens what cash flow is and why it's so important to your business? Because and I'm being transparent. Our business, right, is an events business. And if
Mm-hmm.
you know anything about events, it is a very high expense business model. It's
Mm-hmm.
expensive to run
Mm-hmm.
this type of
Mm-hmm.
business. And one of the things that we used to run into was that we didn't generate enough cash flow sometimes to cover upcoming expenses for
Mm-hmm.
an event because of the timing, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have slow seasons. Sometimes when it comes to events, people might not buy tickets until 2 weeks before the event, but you have all of these other bills. You got to pay the team, you got to pay for
Mm-hmm.
marketing, all of these
Mm-hmm.
different things. And so we would be like, what the why are
Right.
we running into this issue? And that's when I learned about what how important cash flow was for a business. So I just want to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, you know what? So we said we're going to keep it real. So I'm going to help everyone kind of understand cash flow. So when I think about a sink, and I think you turn your water on the sink, and as long as it's not clogged, things are moving. And when things are moving, that means you can wash dishes, you can do everything you need to do, right? However, the minute you get a clog where it's not going out or it's slow going out, it prolongs your day. It doesn't allow you to do what you need to do. It'll stop you from doing it. And pretty soon it backs up. And when it backs up, there's a consequence. You got to stop what you're doing totally. You got to pivot and deviate and go figure out a way to fix it. And we all know time is not something a business owner have a lot of. So when you're spending time because you're stopped and you're clogged, that means I'm not producing any revenue. I'm not being productive. And that time equates to money. So I'm losing money on the back end. So a clock sink does nobody any good. It actually costs the business owner more money. So when I think about cash flow, it's the same thing. It is when the water is moving smooth through the business, is doing what it's supposed to do. It allows you to do what you need to do. Not having, you mentioned in your business that people buy tickets at the last minute. They don't. So you understand that you can't control the consumer's behavior. So you have to mitigate their behavior. And what I mean by that,
Come on, banking term.
so mitigate is I find a solution, understanding what the challenges are for my business. So I love what you said, Taniesha, because you understand the gravity of your business. As a business owner, you got to understand the gravity of your business. You got to understand the industry you're in. You got to understand the outside forces that affects your business that you can't control. However, you can put things in place to mitigate them for influencing how you run your business. So cash flow is just that. I got cash coming in. Another thing about cash flow, it tells me, did you price your products and services right? Because if you go into business, you need to price it right so that you can make profit. I often think about this. One of my mentors shared with me. He said, Tiffany lamps. I don't know if you've ever seen a Tiffany lamp. And there's a unique group of people who like Tiffany lamps, right? I wouldn't say they're my favorite. I wouldn't say they're very attractive to me, right? It's a lamp, it's multicolored, right? So some people love them, but Tiffany has a set price that they charge for the lamps, and they're very expensive. And it's not for everybody, but they don't change their prices because everybody can't buy it. So I'm sharing, when you're a business owner, you have to know your worth and price your stuff. If you are Mercedes didn't change their prices during COVID. They left them the same, right? Because they know their brand. They have brand themselves and know their quality. So you got to make sure you price it right so that I have cash flowing in my business. I don't want to diminish my business by bringing my prices down to nothing, because it creates a cash flow problem. If I don't price my business right, and everything else, remember, outside forces, if the economy changes, things go up. And if I haven't priced myself right, it creates that clog that we talked about in the sink. So you got to price yourself right first. Then you got to manage your expenses. Manage it. If Taniesha, if I'm coming to you and I'm buying from you every year, I'm a hedge. I'm gonna hedge my prices. You say, well, Mikki, what's hedging? Glad you asked. I'm gonna come to you, Taniesha, and I'm gonna say to you, you know what, Taniesha? I guarantee you that I'm gonna buy 800 of these items from you this year. And say that you're charging $1.25 for them. I say, Taniesha, let's do a contract for 5 years. Instead of paying $1.25, I'm gonna pay you $1.40. What have I done? I just hedge, because I don't know what economy is going to do. I don't know if the whatever it takes to make that, the price is going to go up. But what I've done is I've created a fixed cost in my business that does not matter what goes on the outside. I'm going to get this for this dollar amount, so I can almost dictate how much profit I'm gonna make from that, because I hedged it. So you got to be savvy in your business. Think efficiency. Think control. What can you control, and how can you control it? Because that affects that bottom line. Then you have some cash flow. Then you have some net profit. But to not have net profit is a challenge for a business, right? I mean, there's section we talk about depreciation and things like that are out there that you can write off. But you got to understand, if your goal is to grow your business, you got to have net profit, and you got to be looking around the corner. If I know my business is growing and I know I want to employ 2 more people, or I know I want to bring another product line on, I should start planning that this year for 2 years down the road. You plan to borrow. You don't wake up the next morning and say, I'm going to borrow money. You plan to borrow money.
I am so glad that you brought that up about planning to borrow. But also, y'all, I hope y'all listening to this, because this is some good stuff. She talked about hedging. She talked about managing your expenses. I know for some, and this could be as simple as, like, let's give a real world example. Say you pay for a subscription to send out your emails, your newsletter. Now you could pay for that subscription every month, or if you have the means, you can pay a yearly fee, which
Mhm.
cuts down on the expense. That's one
Yes.
example of
Mhm.
simply being intentional about where you're spending the money and how and when.
Mhm.
You could also, if you wanted to cut expenses, well, not cut expenses, but manage expenses, when there's a slow season. Are you looking
Yes.
at, what am I
Yes.
spending? What can be
Yes.
cut? What can be delayed? So I love that you mentioned, um, and this goes back to working on your business and not just in your business. A lot of
Ah.
times as entrepreneurs, we're in hustle mode.
Mhm.
We're like, we got to get it. We got to get the money. But you're not understanding that being in that hustle mode is actually hurting you. So
Yes. Something you brought up, I want to share this. This is my motto for every business owner. I don't care who you are. 20% of your time should be working on the business and not in it. And if you're not working 20% of the time on the business, you're missing opportunities. You're missing strategy and the ability to be able to ideate. You're missing an opportunity to be able to maybe capture another market, because you don't know what's available, and you don't know kind of what the competition is doing. You're getting in the game after the fact, because you haven't had the time to do that. You got to work on your business, and you talked about it, about being efficient in your business. One of the things I tell restaurants, if I'm sitting down with them, what on your menu are people not buying? Because here's the reality: if they're not buying it and you keep it on the menu, you gotta buy it. You gotta go buy it to make sure that you have it in case that one person come in and buy it. Now look at that. So spoilage, because if nobody's buying it, you keep buying the ingredients to make this and nobody ever orders it, it's a cost to you. That's affecting your cash flow. So working on your business allow you to evaluate what products, what services am I delivering that maybe I need to move off of my list of things. It doesn't behoove a business to have a whole lot of things if people are not utilizing it, right? So make sure you're evaluating that often. That's why that business plan is so important, because it allows you to go back and say, when I wrote this up, what did I think of for my business that I have not employed in my business? Or what did I employ that was not in my business plan and maybe it's a drain to my business? So that business plan is key.
Two things. The business plan. So shout out to Nashville Business Incubation Center, Angela Crane Jones. She makes
Yes.
magic over there.
Yes.
She was very pivotal in us restructuring our business so that we could stabilize it. Let me say this
Mm-hmm.
in layman's terms. She was pivotal. She was very helpful to help us get our cash flow and everything else
Mm-hmm.
together. But one of the things that happened was we had a session with a strategy coach and we would meet with her quite often. And one of the things that she brought up was like, okay, let's go back to your business plan. So I'm like, yeah, we got a business plan. We got one. It's right here. When is the last time you looked at the business plan?
Come
When is the
on.
last time that you evaluated what, like what you just said, Mikki? This is what I planned and this is where I am. She said the business plan is your road map.
Man.
Most
Yes.
entrepreneurs create that business plan and they don't look at it ever again. So I want to iterate that yes, it may seem, just like a sheet of paper, but if
Mm-hmm.
you really treat that business plan as a roadmap and you work in your business 20% of the time. So for example, if you're working 40 hours a week on your business, 20% of that is 8 hours a week, right?
Yes.
Not too bad. 2 hours a day. There you go. Two, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
be good. So that's one thing, talking about the business plan. Now, the other thing that you mentioned, dang, I done went down on my rant about the business plan. What was the other thing you just said? Um, Dang, it was so important. Can you remind me?
I said a whole lot. I don't know
No, it
what
was
I
the
said.
last you talked about the business plan. It was the last thing that you said.
Um,
What
I
was
don't know.
it?
Did I say planning to borrow the money? Um,
Dang it. It was so good. Um, I wish I could play it back. I can't
but
remember.
I don't know, but you talk about revisiting the business plan. I cannot encourage that enough. We have technology. AI is affecting every business across the board, and if you're not revisiting your business plan, you might employ something into your business that AI could do, and you spend all this time and money to do it when you can use technology to employ it, right? So that's why that business plan is so important. One of my favorite things: write it down, make it plain, because when you write it down, you make it plain, you can visually see it. It requires that you think through the process. So I'm with you, Taniesha. Please go back and revisit your business plan, right? Every year you should be revisiting. Did I achieve this? Did I not achieve this? And business plan, it can grow, it can evolve. It's okay to let it evolve, but every year you should be revisiting your business plan.
I love that. I would say to to be candid, I actually revisit my business plan once a quarter
Mm,
because I'm still in the building. I'm 7 years in full time, and I feel like I'm still building and still testing. So I have to go back and see quarter to quarter how are we progressing? Where was I off? And where can we pivot? I
mm-hmm.
remembered though what it was. You were talking about the restaurant. You
Uh-huh.
were talking about having things on the menu that the customers aren't eating.
Fine. Yeah.
And I think that's so important because a lot of, I'm going to say our people go into business, or let's just say new entrepreneurs. And the first thing
Mm-hmm.
that they say, because I'm a marketing person, the first thing that they say is, I don't want to exclude anyone. So I'm going to target everyone. And not only that, when it comes to inventory, I need to have a variety of things. I need to have all types of things because that is how I'm going to make money. And I'm
Mhm.
here to tell you simple is better. One of the things that we teach over at Shop Blackfest is to focus on your best sellers, right? So
Mhm.
those are the things that customers continuously buy. They buy a lot
Mhm.
of it, they talk about it, they're happy about it, and if you focus on what is selling the best, you can cut everything else. So more is not better.
No.
I want to know what your thoughts on that before we
Well,
wrap this up.
I'm right on. You should be having this podcast with yourself, right? Because I'm totally on board with you. Because here's the thing: if I have an item that's selling, my best item is selling good. Remember, I talked about ideating. Now I take whatever that service or that product is, and I say, how can I enhance it? What are the customers needing? What can I add to it? Not bring another product in. What can I add to this to enhance it? Because when I enhance it, guess what? I can charge more for the enhancement. Look at the streamline of that, and you already got a group of people, or you've created a brand with that, so people want it. So how do you enhance it? How do you make it better? I think about lemonade. Right, lemonade is just lemonade. People love lemonade, right? But then now you throw you some strawberries in there, real strawberries. Now you got strawberry lemonade, right? You said, well, everybody don't like that, so I'm gonna throw some blueberries in there and give it a whole little different taste. Now I got blueberry lemonade, right? You said, you know what? It's real hot. It's 99 degrees today. I'm gonna take it, throw it in a blender. I'm gonna add ice to it, make it a freeze it. Throw some whipped cream on top. Now you got a lemonade frosty, right? So and I can charge more for that. So what did I do? I took a product that everybody wanted, they demanded it. All I did was adapt it to things I think that they could. I enhanced it, right? And it gave me more offerings. But look what happened. I didn't have to bring in more products necessary. Maybe some fruit that didn't cost me much. Some whipped cream, it didn't cost me much because I'm still sticking with what I've done the best. I go back to what you said. Identify what you're the best at and say, how can you enhance that? And then you can increase the price, your profit margins grow. And here's the other part. You ain't got to figure it out or master it because you've already mastered it. I'm just enhancing it.
I first of all, I hope you don't mind, but I'm definitely going to borrow your lemonade analogy because I love that.
No problem.
Um, I was gonna add to that and say, let's say, because we work with a lot of entrepreneurs that they're making candles or they have jewelry. So say you have candles. Instead of
Mhm.
having 18 different types of candles, right? You take one candle with the scent that is off the shelves. It's always sold out. Then you say, you know what? I'm gonna add a room spray with the same scent.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to add, I'm going to take something and enhance this one scent, but I'm not going to go and buy more materials with a whole bunch of different other options when you're not even selling the things that you have. So I think that's
Right.
so important because we just spend so much money thinking that we're going to make more money, but you're in our people terms, you're hustling backwards, okay?
Right. Right. So you know what? Something you said. So the other part I add to that is, please, please. I tell people all the time. They say, "Well, think outside the box." I want to tell you, go outside the continent. Don't because and I told one of my customers the other day. I said, he's like, I just want a piece of the pie. I said, how about you get the ingredients, make the pie, you get to keep the whole pie, right? Instead of just getting a piece, let's get the whole pie. And so I'm gonna go back to your scenario. Just listen to you, and this is kind of how my mind working. This is what we do, kind of as strategists when we're working with our business customers. You're talking about a candle. You talked about a candle. You talked about room spray, right?
Hmm.
Then I said, well, you know what? You can make some melts because people like to throw in that thing and
The
melt them.
wax melts, yep.
Yes, ma'am. And then I thought, what is the whole purpose of a candle in a room spray? It's to make the house feel smell good. So you could take your fragrance, and everybody has to change the filters on their furnaces. You could take that and make an attachment to your furnace where when it blows through the house, it's on the furnace and it's blowing through your whole house. That's another way to be able to get that scent through the house where you're thinking outside the box.
I
I'm just
love
saying,
this.
so and does it take much for that? No, but you got to be able to ideate. But see, if I don't take 20% of the time of my day and ideate, I won't come up with innovative things like that. So there are things, if you sit back, there are things you can employ into your business. It's just a small pivot, but man, the profit margins on it could be huge for your business.
And so I want to talk about the importance of being profitable because I don't know if y'all know this, but there's a very small percentage of small businesses that are profitable. Usually, and this stat was I think it was around like 3,000. Like most small businesses, black-owned small businesses, their profit margin is less than $4,000.
Mm.
Do
Mm.
you know what that means?
You gonna have a
So
hard time coming to the bank to borrow 60,000, and you only got $4,000 as a repayment source.
exactly. So I want you to talk about the importance of profit margin, and then we're going to finish this conversation and discuss how you can grow at different stages. And I'm going to go into the different stages right after you talk about, um, again, a breakdown of why profit margin is so important.
Well, so Tanisha, we said we're going to keep it simple and plain. So if I go into the store and I buy $80 worth of groceries and I only got $30, am I going to be able to take those home?
Now you got to put some stuff back.
Exactly. So at the end of the year, if I write off everything and I have no money left, but I come to an organization, I need to borrow money. But you telling me you run the business all year long and you're making no money? From a risk perspective, it becomes risky for me to loan you money and your business is already not making any money. Your profit margins does a lot of things for you. Profits, net profits. It says that, you know what, I priced my business right. Now look at the story this tells. Net profit says that my profit margins are good. Net profit says there is a demand for a product or service that I offer. So there's a group of people who want it, right? Net profit says that my business is running efficiently. Those are three key pieces. And when I think about a business, what do you want to know about a business? You want to know that it has a good brand, that people like it and want to use it, right? Number two, that you want to know that the business owner has a business acumen to run a business efficiently, even though there are outside forces that might be impacting the business. You want to know that. And number three, you want to know that they have priced themselves where they don't deter a customer from buying from them because every month they're changing their price. See, if I set my price right, the expectation you said earlier, everybody's not going to buy from me. And it's okay because everybody's not driving around in Lamborghinis, right? Everybody doesn't have what is that the Mercedes truck. Everybody's not driving that, right? Because it's not for everybody. But I'm not going to change my prices all the time. If you're adapting your prices all the time, that means you haven't studied the market and identified what the prices should be. So when I price my stuff right, I captivate the right customers, I should have a net profit. A thriving business is going to have a net profit. And then when you come to an organization to borrow money, I see that you're thriving, that you have money and you have the ability to pay us back because you got net profit. But if you negative or you zero, my question is always, how are you going to pay me back if you don't have any money to pay me back? So that is the reason why net profit is so important. It'd be better for you to pay Uncle Sam a little taxes and be able to borrow money down the road than to write everything off and then come to try to borrow money and can't get it.
I love how you broke that down. And I want to just add one thing to that, which is because we were talking about net profit. And if you don't have a profit or a profit, anything in your profit margin, then your business is not making money. Essentially, net profit is the money that you have coming in minus the money that you have coming out to pay for stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're netting at zero, you got $100 that came in and you spent $100, that means you have 0% profit margin. So that is what she's saying that the bank is looking to see if you can repay them from. You have $0. So I think it's important for you all to start thinking about that, especially as you're starting a business or trying to grow it. And that's something for us, again, just being transparent, that we are working behind the scenes to really figure out a way to improve our profit margins, to grow our business so that it is sustainable because it's something that's needed. Um, okay, last thing. So there, in my mind, there are different stages of entrepreneurship. So
Mhm.
when you mentioned it earlier, when you first start off, you're in hustle mode. So that's the hustler stage.
Mhm.
Then you graduate, hopefully you graduate after a couple of years and now you're an entrepreneur, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You're
Startup.
right.
Mhm.
And then the next stage, you graduate from that. And when I say entrepreneur, usually as an entrepreneur, you're bringing in money, but you're doing a lot of the things yourself.
Right.
And
Right.
then you graduate a little bit more, you graduate more, and now you're a business owner, meaning that now you have a team, now you have infrastructure, you have systems. So
Mhm.
you're starting to run a business, right? And then after that, you graduate and now you're able to build wealth because now your business is growing and you can take what you've earned from your business and start to invest it and move around and do other things, right?
Mhm.
You become a wealth builder. That
Mhm.
that that is what we teach over at Shop Blackfest. So what I would like to know from you is if you're in the stage of, let's not talk about hustling, being a
Okay.
hustler, right? Let's talk about in the stages of going from an entrepreneur to a business owner
Okay.
and a business owner
Owner
to a
to
wealth
a
builder.
wealth builder. Mhm.
What are your thoughts about how to make those leaps?
Okay.
What do you think some of the key things are that you need to be doing?
So to make it maybe simple for everybody, I think of it like this: when a college student graduates from college, now they're going into the real world, right? And when they go out there, they're going to get their first job, and it's not going to pay them maybe top dollar, right? So when I go out there, there are going to be things that I need, things that I want. But I have to remember I can't get it all at one time. And you said it so candidly earlier. So now I am an entrepreneur. I am a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I just started off. I'm in the startup phase. In the startup phase, I have to be realistic with myself that I've got to have funding, and that funding, a majority of it needs to come from me, right? Then the other part of it, as in my startup phase, I need to make sure that I have the right people on my team. I love that you talked about your coach, right? There's a big difference between coach, a business coach, and a mentor. If you're a business owner, you need a business coach because what do? They understand business. They understand trends and changes in the industry, right? They understand business strategy. That's different from a mentor. Have someone who has real knowledge to help you. Don't go get your friend that wants to start a business and use them as a coach. Let's go get someone who really, and you have to be able to invest in what it is you're trying to do.
Woo!
It's an investment at the beginning. Sometimes we don't want to pay you. It's like, well, I'm a small business, I don't have any money. But if you invest, the return becomes great. We talk about ROI, return on investment. If you invest in your business right and intentionally, you might not see it for 3 to 5 years. But when you get to the 5 year mark, when you're basking in nothing but success, you'll remember I had to invest. So for my entrepreneurs, it's a huge investment. Be intentional. Do the foundation. A house is built on the solid. When the wind come, it won't blow away. But if I don't build it solid and I build it on straw, when the wind comes, it's gonna blow. So how you build the foundation of that business will determine the trajectory of how long it will exist. So as an entrepreneur, know you got to invest in it. Know you need to identify what am I good at and be the best at it, right? Get you a coach to help you. Now, as I transition from an entrepreneur over to what I call a growth business. Because think about it. After I graduated from college, I got my first job. Now I found that man, we married, and now we're about to grow our business, our household, right? So we need a house instead of apartment because we're about to have kids. That's kind of how I see the growth of a business. So now I'm in that second stage. I'm growing. Instead of it just me and my husband, now it's me and my husband and 2 employees. Now your mindset has to change because now I'm affecting the workforce. Now I got 2 employees who are relying on me to make good decisions in my business to make sure it stays viable. What does that mean? I'm so glad you asked. So oftentimes as business owners, We talked about 20% of working in your business. That 20% of your business means I'm networking, because in networking creates opportunity for me to meet people, to talk about my business, to put my business on display, and to make connections. You'll be amazed at how many millions of people say, I became successful because I met the right person at a networking event. Number one. Number two, as my business grow, I need to be volunteering back into my community. Same difference. In volunteer, you never know who you're volunteering with, right? So spend time volunteering. Number three, get you take some time to educate yourself in your industry. Know what's coming, know what's changing. Join the if you're a dentist, join the dentist networking group, right? And then make sure that you visit businesses that have nothing to do with dentistry, right? Because in the other organizations network, all those people need their teeth done, right? So I'm just saying, don't always align yourself with everybody in your same business. You do need some of that, but remember, I'm trying to captivate an audience. So during my growth, I need to connect with other people as I'm growing, and then in my growth, control your growth. There was an organization, I won't say the name of it, but it was doing wonderful. It was growing wonderfully. And it decided that, oh, I'm going to start a frozen session. So it started frozen food. It was a retail, it was a restaurant. They wonderful food, healthy food. People love going there. Then they broke out and did a frozen side. Well, remember, anytime you venture out and you do something new in your business, your existing business has to fund it. It has to fund it. And if you grow too fast, growth can hurt your business badly. So that business doesn't even exist anymore because of that. So in the growth stage, control your growth and be intentional. And then when you get to what I call the mature stage, this is the stage that Taniesha, you were talking about that I love. This is the stage where I have built wealth. Now I need to manage that wealth, right? I'm not telling you don't buy a Louis Vuitton purse. I'm not going to say that, right? But when you get in that stage, you need to ask yourself, I'm trying to build wealth. What does that look like? And what's going to give me a return on my money, right? So be intentional about how you invest that money. Right. And then at that point, you need to start talking. Succession plan should have been at the beginning of your business plan. It should have been. So I would say in your maturity, you should be evaluating your succession plan. You should be doing that all along the way. But when you get to the maturity stage, you really need to know.
Can you break down just for the people in the back? I don't know what's going on with my sound. Can you break down for the people in the back what a succession plan is?
Yes. So I define what success looks like for me. I define in there at different stages what I need to achieve. And at the end, I decide when I get ready, success looks like this for me. And this is what I want, where I want to be when it's time for me to transition from the business. So if I go into business, a lot of times I might go, people go into business, say, to be their own boss and to grow wealth. Well, my succession plan says when it's time for me to transition, I've identified what I'm going to do with this business. It's a succession. I'm succeeding from this and I'm going to something else. So, am I going to sell the business? Or do I create this business for it to be a legacy from one generation to the next? Do I have a plan in place? And if I have a plan in place, guess what? I have a person in place. And I've been working with them for the last 10 years so that they can take the reins and do it. Or if I'm going to sell it, I have positioned myself where, we talk about pitching your business. I have positioned myself that when I pitch, everyone wants to buy, right? A succession plan, it don't happen overnight. It's intentional. You're doing it in stages, right? And allows you to transition like you want to.
I'm glad the first thing that I thought about with the succession plan. So now I'm in my head, I'm like, I don't think we have that mapped out officially in our business plan. I need to go back and make sure that we implement that. But this is okay. So when you think about like mom and pop shops, or companies where like right now this is a time where a lot of people are selling their businesses because maybe they don't have, a succession plan.
Mm-hmm.
They don't as far as like having somebody to hand it over to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm thinking about how many businesses close, especially family businesses, because they haven't transitioned the right way. And so that business, that legacy just dies. That was like a thought in my mind. So I understand. I'm glad that you brought that up because it's so important to think about those things. And I believe as Black entrepreneurs, like you said, we're like, I want to be my own boss. I want to
Mhm.
make money. And a lot of times we're thinking about, I'm gonna just say it, it's more like we're thinking about the business as a hustle versus taking ourselves seriously and
Mhm.
actually doing the work necessary to grow it into something that we couldn't even imagine, what it was. So I appreciate you for sharing this information.
Well,
Um,
it's something I want to piggyback on to when I think about succession planning. You know, you talked about closing the door, and I would just encourage any business owner, if you don't have a succession plan, build one now. Because just like Taniesha, today you are doing your business. I promise you, there was someone who was doing what you did, and they just shut their doors down. And so it created a platform when you came in, you had to start from the bottom and work your way up. The fourth life cycle of a business is either transition or decline. And I like that stage because that's a stage where someone can come in a business that has become stifled, bring in ideation, bring in technology, and change the whole trajectory of that business, right? But they're not having to start from the bottom. Don't you wish you could have came in up under someone and learned the ropes?
woo,
And then bought the business from them and then put in your own ideals. Too often we're doing that. Too often we're closing the door and we forget about the kid down the street, and then he grows up and he wants a lawn service. He's got to start from the bottom and work his way up. How you build a community, how you build business that are stable is because, maybe that person who was cutting the grass has been doing it for 15 years. He's built a brand, he's got a following. Right? That kid could come in, step in there, learn from him, get introduced to who the customers are so he can keep those relationships and then bring his ideals, his dreams into that business, change it. But he's not starting from the bottom up. So for us, when you think about succession planning, that has to be part of it. How am I going to transition this? And even if it's a legacy not for my family, it might become a pillar in the community. So I sell it to someone else who takes it and continues that business. So we need to be thinking about that as we think about our businesses and what the succession looks like in all four stages. Start at the bottom. Is your succession plan should start at the very beginning in your business plan.
thank you for that. Thank you for that. You know what I'm like, we might have to make this kind of a routine thing because there's a whole other I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many other topics that we could discuss. So I want to close this out. And I'm talking to the person who may be in struggle mode right now. So this is Black Business Month. And you know, a lot of people are excited about the fact that it's Black Business Month, but for Black entrepreneurs, doors are closing. A lot of businesses aren't making it to year three or making it past year three, four, or five. And to be candid, a lot of entrepreneurs think that they're going into the business to create wealth, but they just end up creating a job for themselves. They end up living paycheck to paycheck, or in our case, event to event with the business that they have, and they're stuck. So I want you, Mikki, to talk to that person and tell them what you believe would be the best next step for them if they're feeling stuck.
I would say it again. And, one of the things I'm very proud of what US Bank has done is we have business access advisor in every city. And our goal is to advise and to connect, right? And to get you the services and things you need to be successful. So if you're trying to do it on your own, find someone to help you, but not just anybody. You got to find someone who is intentional, who has experienced this, who knows about small businesses, right? And then get connected to like an NBIC. We talked about Nashville Business Incubator. Get connected to someone over there who can help you get the business acumen. Take a step back, Remember what you went in business for and think about some of the key things we said today. Do I have too many services I'm offering? Can I narrow that down and focus on one thing that's really good? Number two, do I have a budget in place? Have I budgeted myself? And am I meeting those numbers? Number three, when I priced this, did I price it right or did I price it because I was desperate to get the customer? So I priced it to my disadvantage, right? So go back and evaluate that. If one you take nothing else from this, remember if you don't spend 20% of the time working on your business, you miss tons of opportunities, which leads to the frustrations that you're talking about today, Tanisha. My business is about to close because I cannot do or I'm failing. I just don't have it. So take a step back, breathe for a second, because if you have a dream, that dream can be amazing. But in dreams that without a plan becomes a nightmare. So connect with the right people to keep your business going.
And with that, we're gonna close this out. Thank you so much, Mikki, for joining me today. I'm sure we're gonna have plenty more conversations. But I appreciate this, and I hope that if you're watching and you're feeling overwhelmed or helpless, I want you to take from this that it's okay to feel how you're feeling right now, but don't give up and don't be afraid to ask for help. And
Yes.
that is my challenge to you. It is time for you to go get some help from the right people, but that should be your next step. Tanisha Westbrook signing out. Y'all continue to watch Shop Black-A-Thon. We got some more good stuff coming up for you.